The European genetic landscape was once thought to be a story of slow sedimentary accumulation, a quiet transition from the first farmers of the Anatolian Neolithic to the modern populations we recognize today. We relied on the steady progression of pottery styles and burial rites to map a movement of peoples, assuming that cultural shifts mirrored biological ones. But the data from the 3rd millennium BCE has shattered this narrative of gradual change. In a temporal blink, the genetic signature of Central Europe was not merely altered, it was overwritten. Across the vast stretch of the North European plain, a specific ancestral component, one that had not existed in the region just centuries prior, suddenly accounted for nearly 75% of the local gene pool. This was not the result of a subtle cultural exchange or the diffusion of new ideas. It was a massive, unidirectional biological displacement that remains one of the most significant population turnovers in human history. The architects of this genomic revolution were a group of pastoralists known as the Yamnaya, emerging from the Pontic-Caspian steppe, a sea of grass stretching from the Danube to the Ural River. They possessed a suite of adaptations that transformed the environment from a barrier into a highway. While archaeology long focused on their kurgans, monumental burial mounds that puncture the horizon, the true story is written in the FST values and principal component analyses of their ancient DNA. The Yamnaya were not a pure or static people. They were themselves a product of a profound admixture event between Eastern hunter-gatherers and a population related to the Caucasus. This convergence created a genetic profile that was remarkably homogeneous across thousands of kilometers, a biological signal of a highly mobile, interconnected society that had mastered the logistics of deep steppe survival. By 3000 BCE, the Yamnaya began a massive westward expansion that would fundamentally recalibrate the ancestry of a continent. For decades, historians debated whether this migration was a migration of ideas or a migration of peoples. Genetics has ended that debate with cold mathematical certainty. When we sequence the remains of the corded ware culture in Germany and the Baltic, we find that these individuals were, in many cases, genetically indistinguishable from the Yamnaya of the Russian steppe. This was a literal translocation of bodies. However, the data reveals a startling asymmetry in how this expansion occurred. The initial wave of Yamnaya-related DNA into Europe is heavily biased toward the male line. By analyzing Y chromosome haplogroups such as R1b and R1a, researchers have identified a founder effect so potent that it suggests a small, highly successful group of males effectively replaced the existing patrolines of the European Neolithic. This was not a singular event, but a series of cascading demographic shocks. The Yamnaya did not just bring their genes, they brought a specific biological toolkit and, quite possibly, a silent hitchhiker that cleared the way for their arrival. Recent genomic studies of human remains from the period have identified the presence of Yersinia pestis, the plague, dating back centuries before the Black Death of the Middle Ages. Unlike the medieval strains, these early variants lacked the genetic mutation for flea-borne transmission, meaning the infection likely spread through respiratory droplets or contaminated food. As the Yamnaya moved westward, they may have been entering a landscape already thinned by a prehistoric pandemic, moving into the vacuum left by the collapsing Neolithic societies of the old Europe. The expansion of the Yamnaya was underpinned by a technological and biological synergy that redefined the limits of human range. To understand their success is to understand the logistics of the wheel and the physiology of the horse. Genetic evidence indicates that the Yamnaya were among the first to possess the genetic variants associated with persistent lactase production, though the frequency was far lower than in modern Europeans.
This suggests that while they were not yet fully adapted to drinking raw milk in adulthood, they had mastered the processing of dairy into yogurts and cheeses, a portable, high-calorie survival strategy that allowed them to venture deep into the arid interiors of the steppe, where agriculture was a physical impossibility. This secondary products revolution turned the steppe into a resource-rich landscape for those who knew how to harvest it. However, the genetic record cautions against a narrative of total instantaneous conquest. As the Yamnaya-related corded ware groups pushed into the heart of Europe, the DNA shows a complex process of admixture rather than a simple erasure. While the male Y chromosome lineages of the earlier Neolithic farmers, the I and G haplogroups, saw a dramatic decline in frequency, the mitochondrial DNA, passed down through the female line, tells a story of continuity. We see local Neolithic women being integrated into the expanding steppe-descended communities. It creates a genetic braid where the maternal signature of the first European farmers survived within the social structures of the newcomers. It is a biological record of a massive social reorganization, one that likely involved the formation of new patrilineal clans that acted as the primary engines of migration. As we move further west toward the Iberian Peninsula and the British Isles, the genetic evidence for this turnover becomes even starker. Around 2500 BCE, the arrival of the Beaker cultural complex coincides with a near-total replacement of the male population. In Britain, over a period of just a few centuries, 90% of the gene pool was replaced by individuals carrying high levels of steppe ancestry. This wasn't a gradual blending of two populations, it was a massive demographic collapse followed by a rapid repopulation. The evidence points to a massive founder effect, where a specific branch of the Yamnaya lineage, haplogroup R1b P312, became the dominant genetic signature of Western Europe. Today, millions of men from Ireland to Italy carry the Y chromosome of a relatively small group of steppe pastoralists who crossed the Rhine 4.5 millennia ago.
This expansion was not merely a conquest of land, but a conquest of time. The Yamnaya DNA didn't just stay in Europe, it pivoted east, crossing the Ural Mountains and surging into Central Asia and the Altai. This gave rise to the Afanasyevo culture, a group genetically identical to the Yamnaya, but separated from them by nearly 3,000 kilometers of wilderness. This reveals a population with an unprecedented capacity for long-distance coordination. The Yamnayization of the ancient world was the first instance of a globalized genetic signature. By sequencing the genomes of these far-flung individuals, we see that they maintained their genetic profile with surprising consistency, suggesting that their social structures, likely based on mobile kinship networks, were robust enough to prevent significant local admixture for centuries. But the data also reveals the limitations of these early expansions. In the forest zones of northern Europe and the high altitudes of the Caucasus, the steppe signature hits a wall. Genetics shows us that environment acts as a filter. Where the pastoralist lifestyle could not thrive, the local hunter-gatherer and farmer populations held their ground for longer. This creates a patchwork of ancestry that still defines the modern European genome. We are not a single monolithic population, but a three-way mixture of Western hunter-gatherers, Anatolian farmers, and Yamnaya pastoralists. The proportions of these three ingredients vary by geography, but the presence of the steppe component is the common thread that binds the continent together. The map of humanity wasn't written in a lab, it was carved by the sea and the stone. This is Helix Horizon, where we trace the code that refuses to stay still. The calibration of the European genome was not a localized phenomenon. It was a symptom of a much larger global reordering of human populations. As the Yamnaya genetic signal matured,
it began to splinter into daughter populations, each carrying a specific subset of the original steppe diversity. This is where the concept of the founder effect becomes a powerful analytical lens. In population genetics, when a small group breaks away from a larger population to colonize new territory, they carry only a fraction of the original genetic variation. For the Yamnaya descendants, this resulted in the rapid dominance of specific Y chromosome lineages, such as R1b M269, which now characterizes the majority of men in Western Europe. This isn't evidence of biological superiority, but of a demographic bottleneck followed by explosive expansion, a mathematical inevitability when a mobile pastoralist group enters a landscape of sedentary, perhaps plague-stricken farmers. Evidence from the high-resolution sequencing of the Bronze Age reveals that this expansion was not a monolith of conflict, but a sophisticated biological integration. In the regions surrounding the Baltic Sea, the genetic data shows a resurgence of hunter-gatherer ancestry. Thousands of years after the first farmers arrived, the local populations who had survived in the dense forests began to admix with the incoming steppe migrants. This tells us that the Yamnaya expansion was adaptive. It stalled in environments where their chariots and cattle were a liability, only to merge with those who had mastered the local ecology. This admixture created the North European genetic cluster, a specific ratio of 3 ancestral components that remains remarkably stable from the Bronze Age to the present day. It is a biological signature of a continent finding its equilibrium. The implications of this shift extend far beyond the physical body. For over a century, linguists have puzzled over the Indo-European language family, the fact that English, Farsi, and Sanskrit share a common structural ancestor. While archaeology struggled to provide a smoking gun, the ancient DNA has provided a proxy. The expansion of the Yamnaya genetic signature tracks with the hypothetical spread of early Indo-European languages with uncanny precision. When we look at the Tarim Basin in western China, we find the Tocharian mummies, individuals with high levels of western steppe herder ancestry thousands of miles from the Danube. Their presence and the Indo-European language they spoke serves as a genetic and linguistic anchor, proving that the Yamnaya were the primary vectors for a cultural and biological homogenization that reached from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Yet, as we zoom out to the macro level, we must recalibrate our understanding of identity. The Yamnaya were not a race, they were a biological event. Their DNA is a mosaic of groups that preceded them, a reminder that there is no ground zero for any population. The Western hunter-gatherers they replaced had themselves replaced the Neanderthals. The Anatolian farmers they marginalized had themselves migrated from the Near East. The Yamnaya expansion is simply one of the most visible pulses in a constant human rhythm of movement and replacement. By treating their DNA as measurable evidence rather than symbolic heritage, we see a species defined not by its roots, but by its routes. The Yamnaya didn't disappear. They were diluted into the very fabric of modern humanity, their survival ensured by their disappearance into the collective genome. This realization forces us to confront the fragility of our modern categories. We often speak of ancient lineages as if they are static entities, but the Yamnaya data proves that the most successful populations are often those that are the most admixed. Their ability to survive was not due to purity, but to their capacity to incorporate new genetic and cultural material as they moved. They were a population in a constant state of flux, their identity redefined by every valley they crossed and every local group they encountered. In the end, the genetic evidence suggests that the history of humanity is not a story of distinct peoples moving across a map, but of a single, highly interconnected web of ancestry that is constantly being rewoven.
The question that remains is not where we come from, but how many more of these invisible expansions lie buried in our code, waiting for the technology to find them. As we look toward the east, toward the vast expansions of the early Iron Age and the massive movements of the migration period, we begin to see the same patterns repeating. The Yamnaya were not the first, and they were certainly not the last. The evidence suggests that the Yamnaya expansion was not a terminal event, but a blueprint. It established a recurring demographic mechanism, the rapid expansion of a high mobility group, the subsequent collapse of local patrolines, and a long-term genetic stabilization through maternal continuity. This pattern, this step signal, is now a permanent fixture of the human record, but its presence raises a deeper, more unsettling question about the nature of evolutionary success. If the majority of Western Eurasia's genetic architecture was remodeled in a few centuries by a single group of pastoralists, what does that say about the stability of any modern population? We often view our ancestry as an ancient, rooted tree, but the genomic data of the 3rd millennium BCE suggests it is more akin to a river system, constantly shifting its banks, merging, and occasionally flooding the entire landscape. The Yamnaya did not conquer Europe in the traditional sense. They flowed into it, their DNA becoming the literal substrate upon which all subsequent history was built. When we sequence a Roman soldier, a Viking raider, or a modern office worker, we are seeing the same Yamnaya alleles staring back at us. Their biological survival was achieved through their own dissolution. They ceased to be a distinct group precisely because they became everyone. This realization recalibrates our understanding of human continuity. We are not the descendants of the Yamnaya in a symbolic or cultural sense. We are the biological vessels for a specific set of successful adaptations that originated in the Pontic-Caspian grass sea. Their mastery of the horse and the wheel, their early experiments with lactase persistence, and their resilience in the face of prehistoric pandemics are encoded in our very cells. But this code is not a static heritage, it is a work in progress. As we look beyond the Bronze Age, we see the same forces of genetic drift and admixture continuing to churn. The Yamnaya component is now being layered over by newer migrations, by the massive urbanizations of the Iron Age, and by the global reshuffling of the last 5 centuries. The signal is still there, but it is fading into a broader, more complex global mosaic. It reminds us that no expansion is permanent, and no genetic signature is final. We are a species defined by the tension between the urge to settle and the biological mandate to move. The true mystery of the Yamnaya is not where they went, but what their sudden rise tells us about the future of our own species. If a single group can overwrite the genetic map of a continent in a handful of generations, what invisible forces are currently reshuffling our own code? In an age of unprecedented global movement, are we witnessing the beginning of a new turnover, a homogenization that will make the Yamnaya expansion look like a local tremor? The map of humanity wasn't written in a lab, it was carved by the sea and the stone. This is Helix Horizon, where we trace the code that refuses to stay still. The data from the Steppe has revealed how quickly a continent can be remade, but it leaves us standing at the edge of a much larger, darker horizon. If the European genome was transformed by a silent plague and a nomadic migration 5,000 years ago, what other ghosts are hiding in the DNA of the Far East or the untraced lineages of the African interior? The code is there, waiting to be decoded,
But the more we learn, the more we realize that the story of humanity isn't about where we stayed. It's about the shadows we left behind as we kept moving.